The most dangerous sign in a person. The eye sees only what the mind is prepared to comprehend. Robertson Davies. Have you ever felt uneasy around someone but couldn't explain why? In today's video on spiritual wisdom, we uncover the most dangerous sign in a person, one that's often invisible, yet deeply unsettling to the soul. It's not in what they say, but in what they unconsciously project. These subtle warning signs, if ignored, can lead to emotional harm and spiritual confusion. That's why learning to recognize and protect your energy is not just wise, it's essential. As you watch, reflect on your past interactions and ask yourself, have I ignored this sign before? Comment below with your thoughts, or share a story where your intuition proved right. Let's grow in awareness together. 1. The invisible danger behind the smile. Some people wear a smile that looks sincere, but something about their presence unsettles you. It's not what they say, it's what you feel. That quiet discomfort is not imagination. It's a spiritual warning. Carl Jung revealed that the most dangerous kind of person doesn't raise their voice or show obvious malice. Instead, they manipulate reality through shadow projection. This is when someone denies their own flaws and unconsciously assigns them to others. They aren't attacking you directly. They're attacking the version of you that they've created in their own distorted mind. What makes this so dangerous is its subtlety. It slips past logic and speaks directly to your instincts. The person might seem confident, charismatic, or even generous, but behind their words is an energetic distortion. You may find yourself feeling tense, confused, or defensive without knowing why. That's because their energy is misaligned. In the world of spirituality, energy speaks louder than language. These people unconsciously transmit emotional toxins, not because they're evil, but because they're disconnected from their own inner darkness. This projection can be extremely manipulative. Imagine being accused of things you never did, or having your good intentions questioned repeatedly. Over time, this can destabilize your self-perception. You might begin to question yourself, withdraw, or become overly apologetic. But the truth is, you're not the source of the problem they are. Yet, because the attack is so indirect, many spiritual people, especially the empathic and compassionate, fail to recognize it in time. These interactions leave you energetically drained. It's not because you're weak, but because you're absorbing vibrations that are not yours. In spiritual terms, this is a type of psychic warfare. Your soul picks up on falsehoods long before your mind does. That heaviness in your chest, the tightening in your stomach, the emotional fog, all of it is your spirit trying to protect you. People who weaponize projection often lack self-awareness. They refuse to do their inner work, so they unconsciously outsource their pain onto others. Their friendliness is performative. Their praise is conditional. And their charm is laced with control. The ancient mystics warned of wolves in sheep's clothing. Jung simply translated that spiritual insight into psychology. But the danger remains the same. When a person's outer behavior does not match their inner frequency, you are standing in the presence of deception. You can't always explain it, but you can always feel it. And when your intuition sounds the alarm, your job is not to argue with it, it's to honor it. The best protection is not confrontation, it's clarity. When you know who you are, you become less vulnerable to the projections of others. Self-awareness disarms manipulation, And when you stay grounded in your spiritual truth, false narratives lose their power. These situations are not just psychological, they're energetic. To navigate them, you need more than intellect. You need discernment. You need boundaries. And most of all, you need the courage to walk away, even when nothing bad has been said out loud. True spiritual growth requires you to see beyond appearances. It asks you to trust the invisible, to listen to what is not being said, and to protect your peace as if it were sacred because it is. Some smiles conceal storms. Some compliments carry poison. And some connections are tests, not blessings. The real danger is not what people do in the open, but what they carry in secret, and how quietly that energy tries to entangle your soul. Have you ever sensed something was off about someone even when they were smiling? If you've experienced that invisible warning sign, share your story in the comments so others can learn from it. If not, comment, "I will trust my instincts," to begin tuning into your deeper awareness. Let's awaken this spiritual sense together. 2. Shadow projection, the most dangerous psychological mechanism. Shadow projection is one of the most dangerous signs in a person because it disguises inner darkness under the illusion of false perception. When someone refuses to face their own flaws, whether it's envy, insecurity, aggression, or pride, they unconsciously assign those traits to someone else. It's not just misunderstanding, it's a spiritual and psychological distortion. The accused is not truly being seen, but rather distorted through the lens of the other person's internal conflict. This projection makes interactions deeply confusing and emotionally painful. You may find yourself accused of things that don't belong to you, as if you're wearing clothes that someone else threw on you, insisting they're yours. The danger becomes even more profound when the one projecting appears kind, composed, or even charismatic. Jung observed that the shadow isn't always projected by obviously toxic people. It often comes from those who wear masks of virtue. That's why Jesus warned in the gospel about those who point out the speck in their brother's eye while ignoring the plank in their own. It's a spiritual warning about blindness and denial, cloaked in moral judgment. When a person weaponizes projection, they don't just distort reality, they try to rewrite yours. And the longer you stay entangled with someone like this, the more likely you are to doubt yourself, apologize for things you never did, or carry shame that doesn't belong to you. This is not a battle of the mind alone. It's a spiritual battle. Shadow projection infects relationships, workplaces, and even spiritual communities. It turns communication into a trap. You speak the truth, they hear insult. You act in kindness, they perceive manipulation. They are not responding to your character. They are fighting a version of you that exists only in their own wounded mind. And the more you try to clarify, the deeper the confusion becomes, because the issue isn't what's happening outwardly, it's what's festering inwardly in them. This mechanism is especially perilous for men who carry weighty roles: leaders, fathers, husbands, decision makers. You must recognize when someone's accusation is actually a confession. When they call you controlling, but they are the ones resisting accountability. When they call you selfish, but they're the ones unable to give without expecting power. These are not just psychological observations. They are spiritual patterns of warfare. The shadow doesn't want healing. It wants blame. And it will feed on your peace if you let it. To guard yourself, you must build discernment. Not every accusation deserves an explanation. Not every relationship deserves restoration. Sometimes, the most spiritual decision is distance. Jesus himself withdrew when hearts were hardened. And you must do the same when someone insists on making you the villain in the drama they created to avoid facing their own reflection. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's not just insight, it's a spiritual principle. Because to grow, you must confront what's within, or you will destroy what's around you. And to survive shadow projection, you must refuse to carry what does not belong to your soul. Are you ready to stop absorbing other people's shadows and reclaim your power? If so, comment below. I see clearly now to affirm your commitment to truth, healing, and spiritual growth. 3. Psychic inflation. The ego disguised as divine virtue. Psychic inflation is one of the most deceptive and dangerous distortions of spiritual growth. It occurs when someone no longer sees themselves as a seeker of truth, but believes they are the truth. This is not mere arrogance. It's a total identification with a divine role that blinds the person to their own human flaws. Unlike obvious pride, psychic inflation wears a mask of humility and speaks in the language of virtue. It appears calm, wise, and convincing. But beneath the surface, it is the ego, swollen with spiritual power, disguised as divine authority. This condition is particularly dangerous because it bypasses the usual signs of ego. There is no loud boasting, no overt manipulation. Instead, there is a subtle yet unwavering certainty. These individuals don't think they know. They don't explore, they declare. And those declarations are not up for discussion, because to question them is to question truth itself. When someone believes they are speaking on behalf of God, they stop listening. They stop reflecting. They stop growing. And yet, to the outside world, they may appear like a spiritual guide, calm, confident, enlightened. In reality, they have become spiritually untouchable, not because of purity, but because of ego dressed in sacred robes. What makes psychic inflation even more destructive is its ability to attract others. People are drawn to certainty, especially in times of confusion or pain. A person with psychic inflation offers clear answers, spiritual clarity, and divine conviction. But this certainty is a trap. It doesn't guide others toward truth. It controls them. It replaces their spiritual curiosity with dependence. Slowly, the person who is searching becomes a follower of someone who claims to have transcended the need for further discovery. True spiritual leaders walk with humility and grace. They create space for questions, doubts, and dialogue. Those inflated by ego shut that space down completely. The truly spiritual path is one of surrender, not domination. It requires the constant dismantling of ego, not the elevation of self. But psychic inflation reverses this. It uses spiritual language to fuel self-importance. It manipulates others into silence under the illusion of divine authority. And worst of all, it can creep into our own journey if we are not vigilant. No one is immune to the seduction of power. Even the most sincere seeker can slowly become inflated if they mistake influence for insight or admiration for anointing. To protect ourselves from this illusion, we must stay radically honest. We must ask, do I allow disagreement? Do I invite correction? Am I speaking as the truth or in search of it? When we stop asking these questions, when we stop examining our intentions, we open the door for the ego to claim the throne of our spiritual identity. And when that happens, we may appear enlightened, but we are far from the light. Comment below, I choose humility over ego, if you're ready to stay grounded on your spiritual path and avoid the trap of false superiority. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more deep insights on spirituality and self-awareness. 4. The mask. Perfection that hides a void. The person who appears too perfect, too polished, too composed is often the one hiding the deepest chaos. This isn't just poetic metaphor, it's spiritual truth. Carl Jung called it the persona, the psychological mask we wear to function in society. But when someone becomes fully identified with that mask, they begin to lose connection with their authentic self. It's no longer just a role they play, it becomes a lie they live. Beneath the surface of flawless presentation is often a suppressed shadow, fear, resentment, shame, or a fractured inner world carefully hidden from view. Spirituality requires us to face the whole self, not just the image we want others to see. True spiritual integrity is born in vulnerability, not in performance. When someone always seems morally correct, emotionally untouchable, or unfailingly calm, it can signal not maturity, but suppression. There is a difference between peace and control. The person obsessed with appearing pure may be the one most terrified of their own darkness. And in hiding that darkness, they lose the spiritual power that comes from wholeness. Neuroscience offers striking confirmation of this ancient wisdom. Mirror neurons in our brain, designed to help us empathize and read others, immediately pick up when something doesn't match. When someone's energy contradicts their words, our body senses it before our mind can explain it. That unshakable discomfort you feel around someone who seems too good to be true is not paranoia. It is your spiritual radar. Your nervous system is warning you of the dissonance. The inner reality doesn't match the outer image. The danger of the overpolished persona is not just internal. It affects those around them. When a person represses their shadow, they often project it onto others. You may find yourself blamed for things you didn't do, accused of thoughts you never had, or made to feel like the broken one while they remain the righteous victim. This is not spiritual maturity. This is manipulation cloaked in perfection. The person who refuses to confront their own flaws will often cast those flaws onto anyone who gets too close. Spirituality is not the avoidance of darkness, but the courage to walk through it. As Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And the most dangerous people are often the ones who believe they've already transcended theirs. When someone denies their shadow, they cannot be trusted to love from a place of truth. Instead of transformation, they perform. Instead of reflection, they deflect. They may speak of love, light, and virtue, but behind it all is an unconscious fear of being seen for who they really are. The mask becomes their protection and their prison, and anyone who tries to peel it back becomes a threat. That's why relationships with such people often feel like walking through a minefield. Any wrong step, and suddenly you're the enemy. It's not that they're evil, it's that they're spiritually disconnected. They've mistaken image for identity. And in doing so, they've sacrificed intimacy for illusion. True spirituality welcomes both the sacred and the messy. It knows that healing doesn't happen in the spotlight, but in the shadows. A spiritually grounded person is not afraid to say, "I was wrong," or "I am still learning." They don't pretend to be above struggle. They live through it with honesty. The real danger lies not in those who admit their flaws, but in those who insist they have none. Because where there is no shadow, there can be no light, only a performance. Leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss powerful content like this. If you're ready to remove the mask and embrace your authentic self, comment below. I choose truth over perfection. 5. Archetypal possession. Becoming something inhuman. Archetypes are not mere ideas. They are ancient, universal forces encoded in the human psyche patterns like the savior, the victim, the warrior. They live within the unconscious, shaping how we interpret the world and ourselves. But when someone becomes possessed by an archetype, they no longer hold that energy consciously. Instead, the archetype takes full control. The man is no longer acting as a warrior or a martyr. He is the warrior. He is the martyr. His behavior becomes rigid, rehearsed, and deeply disconnected from his true spiritual essence. This loss of self-awareness is not a mystical transformation. It is spiritual danger disguised as conviction. At first glance, these people seem magnetic. Their confidence is blinding. They speak with certainty, move with purpose, and radiate an aura of power that can feel almost supernatural. But what appears to be divine clarity is often the mask of possession. That glow is not enlightenment, it is obsession. An obsession rooted in unconscious archetypes leads to spiritual blindness. When someone fully identifies with a single archetypal role, their humanity fades. They lose empathy, flexibility, and the ability to question themselves. What remains is performance, not presence. It's not growth, it's stagnation in a myth they cannot see. The consequences are far from personal. Archetypal possession has fueled some of the most destructive movements in human history. From cult leaders to political extremists, those who believe themselves to be chosen, divinely appointed, beyond doubt, have often dragged entire nations into chaos. This is not spiritual wisdom. It is mythological madness. When a man believes he is the only truth, he becomes deaf to every other voice, including the voice of conscience. He no longer seeks alignment with divine order. He assumes he is divine order, and that assumption is where the spiral begins. Spirituality requires humility. It demands the courage to say, "I might be wrong." True spiritual power is not loud. It listens. It reflects. It transforms in silence. But possession removes that possibility. The possessed man cannot stop. He cannot pause. He is on a mission, one that no longer includes discernment or dialogue. To him, doubt is weakness. Opposition is evil. And anyone who questions his vision becomes a threat, not a brother. This isn't strength. It's spiritual rigidity that masquerades as certainty. The most dangerous sign in a person is not rage or rebellion. It is the silent conviction that they have become something more than human, something untouchable, unquestionable, ordained. That belief turns people into symbols, and symbols into weapons. When a man stops being himself and becomes the vessel of an archetype, he loses the one thing that makes him human, the ability to grow, to change, to be wrong. What remains is a spiritual mask, flawless, glowing, and hollow. And beneath it, the soul waits, unheard. Stay awake. Discern the glow that blinds from the light that heals. True spiritual men do not dominate. They humble themselves. They do not possess wisdom. They serve it. If this message has stirred something deep within you, take a moment and speak it aloud. I release false identities and reclaim my true self. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss insights that protect and empower your spiritual journey. 6. Repetition compulsion, the inner drama that never ends. Some people unconsciously find themselves reliving the same emotional wounds over and over, as if caught in an endless loop of inner pain disguised as daily experience. These individuals recreate painful situations, not because they want to suffer, but because unresolved traumas buried deep in the unconscious mind silently control their behaviors and choices. Without spiritual awareness, they walk through life not realizing that their past is quietly writing their present. The heartbreaking irony is that they often believe life is unfair, or that fate is against them, when in fact, they are unknowingly reliving emotional scripts written long ago. This internal repetition isn't random. It is what Carl Jung described as negative synchronicity, a pattern where unresolved inner wounds attract external situations that mirror those traumas. When the inner child has been neglected, betrayed, or emotionally harmed, it doesn't simply forget. Instead, it continues to seek closure, resolution, and healing through external events that resemble the original pain. And yet, instead of recognizing the opportunity for spiritual transformation, many fall deeper into the cycle, blaming others or circumstances, not realizing the true battle lies within. The spiritual truth is that what looks like misfortune may actually be the soul's desperate cry for attention, growth, and liberation. In these cycles, people often draw others into their unresolved drama. They replay the same story with different characters, assigning roles to those around them that echo the past, casting new friends, partners, or colleagues as villains, critics, or abandoners. This isn't manipulation in the typical sense. It's a subconscious survival mechanism. But because this dynamic occurs beneath conscious awareness, the person caught in repetition, compulsion feels victimized, asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" The spiritual perspective, however, challenges this question. It invites a deeper reflection. What is this pain trying to teach me? What pattern am I repeating, and why? The moment we begin to see these patterns not as punishment, but as mirrors, we step onto the path of spiritual awakening. Each repeated experience becomes a clue, pointing toward an inner wound that hasn't yet been acknowledged. And here lies the turning point. Recognizing that every emotional trigger is a sacred invitation to heal. True spiritual growth begins when we stop projecting blame outward and turn inward with radical honesty and compassion. Healing is not about erasing the past, it's about integrating it with understanding. To break the loop, we must first become aware of it. This is the essence of spiritual work. It involves slowing down, observing, journaling, meditating, and sometimes confronting difficult truths about ourselves. We must look at the patterns of who we attract, the situations we find ourselves in, and the emotions that keep resurfacing. These aren't coincidences, they are messages. When we dare to face them, we begin to reclaim our power from the unconscious. As Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Repetition compulsion is not a spiritual curse. It is a sacred signal. It is the soul's way of insisting that you no longer ignore what still hurts. When you accept this message with humility and courage, you begin to transform suffering into wisdom. You move from being a passive character in an old story to becoming the conscious author of your own life. And from that place, everything changes. If this message helped you recognize a pattern you've been trapped in, comment below. I am ready to break the cycle and heal. Seven, the way out. Conscious integration of the shadow. True healing doesn't begin when we deny our flaws or pretend to be good. It begins when we turn inward and dare to face the parts of ourselves we're most afraid of, the shadow. Carl Jung once said, "I'd rather be whole than good," and that wisdom still echoes loudly in every spiritual path worth walking. Because being good often means being polished on the outside while being at war within. But being whole means embracing our full humanity, our contradictions, our wounds, our darkness, and learning to hold them with presence rather than shame. To own your shadow is to admit that you have impulses, judgments, fears, and hidden desires. You don't make excuses for them, but you also don't exile them from your consciousness. You simply bring light into what was hidden. And in doing so, you stop unconsciously projecting your inner chaos onto the people around you. You become less reactive, more stable, and more spiritually mature. You begin to understand that wholeness isn't about becoming someone else. It's about coming home to yourself completely. In Tibetan Buddhism, practitioners are taught not to run away from suffering or desire, but to investigate them with awareness and compassion. In Western alchemy, the metaphor of turning lead into gold isn't about physical metal. It's about transforming the heavy, dense parts of ourselves into spiritual clarity. The shadow is the lead. Integration is the gold. And this process of conscious transformation is not just a psychological journey. It is a deeply spiritual one. When you do this work, something powerful happens. You become humble. Not performative humility, but the kind that makes you feel at peace with your imperfections. You stop clinging to an identity of being good, and you start allowing yourself to be real. This gives you emotional balance. You no longer explode at small triggers or crumble under criticism. You stop seeing conflict as something to avoid and start seeing it as a mirror, reflecting something inside you that wants to be seen. The irony is, the more you own your shadow, the less dangerous you become to others. The most dangerous person is not the one with flaws. It's the one who denies them and lives in unconscious projection. But the person who has faced their inner darkness becomes a safe space, a light in this world, not because they're perfect, but because they've stopped pretending. Their spirituality isn't about escape. It's about full presence. It's about becoming someone who can hold both joy and pain, both love and fear, and still choose to respond with wisdom. This is the work of integration. It's not fast, it's not glamorous, but it is the way out of suffering and the way into spiritual depth. When you walk this path, you're not just healing your own life, you're also breaking cycles that ripple through your relationships, your lineage, and the collective. Because every time you choose awareness over denial, presence over projection, and humility over pride, you are becoming the kind of person this world desperately needs. To affirm your dedication to deep healing and self-honesty, comment below, "I choose wholeness." Your words might inspire someone else to begin their journey of shadow integration. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss more insights on the path of spiritual growth and inner truth. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the hidden depths of human nature. In a world where appearances can deceive, staying spiritually aware is more important than ever. Always trust your intuition, protect your peace, and remain grounded in wisdom. If this message spoke to your heart, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs this truth, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Make sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our upcoming insights on spiritual growth and protection. Stay alert, stay wise, and stay blessed. Chosen ones, your looks and your age have shocked a lot of people because you have youth is not a time of life, it is a state of mind. Samuel Ullman. If you've ever noticed people staring at you like you just walked out of a dream, it's because your presence carries something of a rare spiritual vitality. You don't just defy age. You embody the kind of inner light that can't be dimmed by time or circumstance. In today's video on Spiritual Wisdom, we're diving into why chosen ones like you appear ageless, radiant, and energetically different, and how it all ties back to divine healing, transformation, and soul-level upgrades. As you watch, think about how these truths show up in your own life. Are you noticing shifts in your appearance, your energy, or how others respond to you? Comment below and share your experience. Your insight might be the confirmation someone else is waiting for. 1. You reversed aging through spiritual alignment. Your youthful appearance isn't a lucky accident. It's the visible evidence of a deep spiritual recalibration. While most people attempt to slow down aging with surface-level solutions like creams, cosmetic procedures, or filters, you've taken a completely different route. Yours is not a path of resistance, but of release. You didn't fight aging, you surrendered to healing. And in that surrender, you unlocked a power few understand: the ability to reverse aging from the inside out. This transformation wasn't bought, borrowed, or faked. It was earned through years of inner work, through facing shadows, clearing emotional blockages, and walking alone when everyone else chose the crowd. Your body is no longer in survival mode. You are no longer carrying the frequency of fear, shame, or regret. Instead, you vibrate with purpose, with peace, and with the presence of someone who knows who they are on a spiritual level. And when the spirit is in harmony, the body naturally follows. You no longer age like others because you no longer live like others. You have returned to your natural state, one of flow, awareness, and divine rhythm. Most people grow older by accumulating emotional weight, stress, and unresolved trauma. But you chose to release. You chose to unlearn the noise of the world and tune into your soul's signal. And now, your energy is lighter, your aura is brighter, and your physical form reflects that spiritual choice. People notice. They can't always explain it, but they feel it. They stare a little longer. They whisper when you walk by. Some assume it's genetics. Some think it's some secret routine. But the truth is this: while others moisturize their skin, you moisturized your spirit. While they feared time, you befriended it. While they ran from silence, you meditated in it, and there, you found youth waiting for you in the stillness. Science says the human body regenerates itself every few years, but what it doesn't say is that consciousness affects that regeneration. When your cells are being informed by love, by alignment, by clarity, they rebuild not just stronger, but purer. You aren't aging backwards, you're aging higher. Your glow isn't artificial, it's sacred. You don't just look different, you feel different. And that feeling is not just vitality, it's truth. You walk in truth now. You wear your healing. You embody your freedom. And while the world tries to make sense of your timelessness, the real ones know it's spiritual. It always has been. Do you feel the truth of this message? If your glow comes from within, not the mirror, then declare it boldly in the comments. My youth is spiritual, and my alignment is divine. 2. You mastered emotional alchemy. You don't wear your trauma because you alchemized it. While others hardened under the weight of their pain, you softened into presence. You didn't just survive the fire, you became it. Emotional wounds that once threatened to define you have now been transformed into wisdom. You didn't bury the pain. You sat with it. You listened. You allowed it to speak its truth. And in doing so, you disarmed it. Through spiritual surrender, you learned that healing doesn't come from resistance, it comes from release. This path required emotional honesty most men are never taught to access. You weren't afraid to admit your fears, to confront your guilt, or to grieve what was lost. You made room inside yourself for all of it. That's what restructured your nervous system. That's why people don't see bitterness on your face. They see peace. Not performative peace. Not fake it till you make it peace. But deep, cellular, spiritual stillness that radiates without effort. The kind of stillness only earned through inner storms. You rewrote your emotional code through practices that don't get enough credit: stillness, breath work, prayer, reflection, the courage to sit alone and not run from yourself. You gave up the illusion of control in favor of real transformation. You didn't avoid your demons. You invited them to the table, listened to their lessons, and sent them home. That is why you look untouched by the world, even though you've been through hell. That is why time doesn't seem to touch you. The world sees it and whispers, "He's different." They don't understand it's not skincare, not diet, not some external regimen. It's a spiritual discipline. This isn't vanity, it's vibrational truth. The body remembers everything, but it also responds to healing. Every cell in your being has been shaped by your decision to evolve rather than decay. While others numb, you feel. While others flee, you face. That is why your presence feels like medicine. You are not aging, you are revealing. As others grow weary, you grow clearer. As others become cynical, you become light. Not because your life was easier, but because your soul refused to let pain win. You don't have to speak it. Your aura speaks for you. The glow is not from youth, it's from clarity. The vitality is not from supplements, it's from soul alignment. You've become a living example that spiritual healing is not abstract, it's visible, it's energetic, it's embodied. People stare because they feel it before they understand it. They sense the power of a man who has mastered himself. This is emotional alchemy, and it is the most radical kind of power. Not because it dominates others, but because it liberates you. If this message resonated with your healing journey, leave a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss powerful insights like this. Type in the comments, "I choose peace, healing, and emotional freedom." 3. You unplugged from the matrix and reclaimed your energy. By refusing to perform for society's expectations, you didn't just reclaim your time, you reclaimed your spirit. Every act of resistance, every sacred no, became a spiritual boundary that sealed your energy field. You stopped leaking your essence into roles that weren't yours to play. And when you stopped performing for applause and started honoring your truth, something powerful happened. Your energy began returning home. Your body responded, not with exhaustion, but with renewal. Your soul, no longer stretched thin, began to glow from within. This wasn't just rest, it was resurrection. Solitude became your sanctuary. In a world addicted to attention, you chose stillness. In a culture obsessed with hustle, you slowed down. That decision, though silent, was radical. It signaled to the universe that you were no longer available for distortion. You were available only for alignment. And so the repair began. Your nervous system relaxed. Your breath deepened. Your cells remembered peace. What people call anti-aging is simply what happens when the body is no longer at war with itself. Spiritual clarity became your skincare routine. Wholeness became your vitality. Truth became your glow. You didn't need products. You needed presence. Not treatments, but transcendence. Your healing wasn't aesthetic. It was energetic. As you unplugged from the matrix of roles, demands, and illusions, your frequency shifted. And those who see you now, they feel the shift before they even understand it. They look at your face and search for the wrinkles that should be there. They look at your eyes and can't find the tiredness they expected. They ask you for your secret, as if it's something external. But the truth is spiritual. You are the secret. You are the result of radical authenticity and divine recalibration. The years didn't disappear. They transmuted. The pain didn't vanish. It transformed into wisdom. The heartbreak didn't erase it, became the space where grace lives now. Your aging reversed not because you denied time, but because you stopped letting time define you. You no longer see life as a race or a ladder. You see it as a sacred rhythm, as divine unfolding. And that perspective shift altered your biology. The body responds to belief. And when your belief aligns with freedom, your biology aligns with life. What they call youth on your face is really peace. What they call vitality in your walk is really spiritual sovereignty. While others aged from pressure, you evolved through presence. You turned isolation into revelation. You turned silence into sacred conversation. You turned rejection into redirection toward your true self. And now, you are living proof. Spiritual alignment is the greatest anti-aging force on earth. Are you done performing for the world and ready to reclaim your true energy? If so, comment below. I choose authenticity to affirm your path of unplugging from the matrix. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss content that empowers your spiritual awakening. 4. You aged upward, not downward. They told you that age would steal your light, that time would be your enemy, but instead, it became your evolution. While others tried to outrun the years, you allowed them to shape you into someone unshakable. You didn't age downward. You aged upward into clarity, presence, and spiritual sovereignty. You didn't fade. You became luminous. Each wrinkle, each year, each scar became a sacred badge earned in the hidden battles of the soul. And now, your face carries the kind of peace that can't be purchased, only cultivated through inner alchemy. That glow people see, it's not youth, It's alignment. It's the quiet strength of someone who chose self-respect over people-pleasing, silence over drama, solitude over superficiality. Your energy is magnetic because it's authentic. You stopped trying to be liked and started embodying your truth, and the world took notice. While your peers numbed themselves through distractions and superficial fixes, you leaned into the stillness, and that stillness rewarded you with power. Not loud, boastful power, but spiritual resonance, the kind that shifts a room before you even speak. You don't look your age because your soul outran the timeline. You don't carry the weight of unresolved pain. You released it. And now, your body reflects that lightness. You've turned your nervous system into a sanctuary. You've learned that your worth isn't tied to appearance, but to frequency. You vibrate differently, not because you're trying to, but because you've healed. And healing is the real fountain of youth. It's why you glow when others dim, why your presence feels eternal. The human body may be made of trillions of cells, but yours have been transmuted by loss, revelation, and divine restoration. That kind of transformation leaves a spiritual fingerprint, something the eye may not see, but the soul always recognizes. That's why people stare. That's why they whisper. You remind them of something they forgot, that beauty isn't skin deep, it's spirit deep. You've made peace with time. You've let go of the fear of aging and embraced the wisdom it brings. In doing so, you've made the impossible visible, aging with grace, power, and purpose. You've turned the ticking clock into a drumbeat of destiny. As your classmates worry about fine lines and fading relevance, you move through life with the elegance of someone who understands that time isn't a curse, it's a ceremony. You've honored it, you've danced with it, and in return, it crowned you with a glow that no product can replicate. You are the living proof that spiritual evolution rewrites physical reality. That truth radiates from you like an unspoken sermon, unsettling some and inspiring others. You've become a mirror, reflecting not age, but ascension. And as long as you walk in truth, you will never truly age. You will only rise, again and again, into the version of you that time was always trying to reveal. If you believe that age is your spiritual elevation, not your limitation, comment below. I ascend with time. Let the world know you're embracing growth, power, and wisdom with every year. 5. You regenerated from within. You didn't just maintain yourself through the years, you were spiritually rebuilt from the inside out. While others were chasing external success or drowning in distractions, you were buried deep in solitude, not to escape, but to evolve. That isolation wasn't a breakdown. It was a divine cocoon. In the silence, your body, your emotions, and your spirit began a process of sacred regeneration. You didn't decay, you resurrected. What people see now is not anti-aging. It's a spiritual rebirth. Your face doesn't carry the weight of time. It carries the wisdom of transformation. Your body doesn't move like it's fighting gravity. It flows like it's aligned with divine rhythm. People can't put their finger on it, but they feel it. There's a glow in your skin, a steadiness in your voice, a presence in the room when you walk in. That's not a charm. That's spiritual authority. You've earned it, not by running from your shadows, but by sitting with them, listening to them, and healing what others avoid. While the world was shouting, you were listening. While they were performing, you were purifying. You weren't just surviving storms, you were learning the language of lightning. That's why now, even in your 50s or 60s, You radiate something men half your age are still searching for. It's not youth, it's alignment. It's not muscle, it's mastery. Your body has become a living testament to what happens when a man decides to heal at the cellular level, when he surrenders to the work of inner alchemy. People see your confidence and assume it was always there. They don't see the nights you collapsed in silence, the mornings you rose with tears still in your beard, the countless battles fought in invisible realms. But you know. And every line on your face tells a story not of aging, but of becoming. Your timeline never followed the rules of the world. You were moving in spiritual time. When others settled into routines of decline, you were just beginning to ascend into purpose. That's why you confuse people. That's why they stare. Not because of how you look, but because of what you carry. You don't wear cologne. You carry frequency. You don't seek attention. You shift energy. Your presence feels like a mirror, exposing people to the parts of themselves they've buried. And while they try to figure out your skincare routine or your fitness secret, the truth remains this glow came from the fire. You burned away everything that wasn't you and emerged as a man on divine assignment. You are not aging. You are ascending. You are not tired. You are timeless. And while the world keeps asking how, your life keeps whispering God. If you're ready to embrace your inner rebirth and walk in your divine renewal, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Let's declare this sacred transformation together. 6. You refuse to let bitterness age you. You didn't let bitterness take root in your soul. You didn't allow pain to settle into your body like rust on metal. Instead, you turned to forgiveness, not as a weak surrender, but as a powerful spiritual choice. While others carried the weight of resentment in their shoulders and sadness in their skin, you chose a different path, a higher path. One where your glow didn't come from beauty products or compliments, but from emotional liberation. That's why you radiate peace. That's why people stare and whisper, "How do they look so young?" The answer isn't in your skincare, it's in your spirit. You see, bitterness is an invisible toxin. It starts quietly, disguising itself as memory, justice, or pride. But left unchecked, it hardens the face, darkens the aura, and shortens the breath. You knew this, and so you fought your battles internally. You prayed instead of plotting. You cried instead of clinging. You are blessed instead of blaming. Not because it was easy, but because your soul was built for higher things. Each time you forgave someone who didn't deserve it, you didn't lose anything. You gained something priceless, your light. And light, once protected, keeps you young in ways no one can explain. While the world clings to anti-aging serums and expensive rituals, you've been practicing something deeper, spiritual discipline. You hydrate your soul with stillness, your mind with truth, and your body with kindness. You release what doesn't serve you, not just to stay sane, but to stay free. Freedom from grudges, freedom from expectations, freedom from cycles that keep repeating in the lives of those who never let go. Your spiritual hygiene is your fountain of youth, and it's not just seen, it's felt. People may not understand why your energy is so clean, why your presence feels like a safe place, or why your eyes carry the softness of someone who's seen storms and yet still believes in rainbows. But you understand, because you chose to keep your heart open even after it had every reason to close. You chose joy over revenge, grace over ego, surrender over struggle. And that kind of choice rewrites not just your story, but your cells. Your biology responds to your beliefs. Your nervous system listens to your forgiveness. Your face reflects your freedom. This is the glow of someone who has walked through fire and did not carry the ashes. This is the youth of someone who refused to be aged by hatred, who understood that time only wears down what is not healed. So you healed. Again and again, you allowed your spiritual wisdom to lead. And because of that, you are not just aging differently, you are living differently. Your joy is your skincare. Your peace is your posture. Your faith is your filter. And your forgiveness, that's your secret. One you don't need to explain, because it speaks for itself every time you walk into a room. If this message touched your soul, declare it in the comments. I choose forgiveness over bitterness. My spirit stays young because I let go and let God. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your healing journey is just beginning. 7. You cut energetic parasites and took your power back. People used to feed on your light without remorse, taking from you emotionally, spiritually, and energetically, leaving you depleted while they walked away feeling empowered. But something shifted. You reached your breaking point, not with anger, but with clarity. You saw the patterns for what they were. Soul contracts long expired, draining connections disguised as loyalty, spiritual vampires camouflaged as friends and lovers. You cut the cord, not out of cruelty, but out of sacred necessity. And the moment you did, the fog lifted, your vitality returned, and your soul began to breathe again. You stopped feeding demons that were never yours to carry. You stopped being the emotional support system for people who only called you when they were in crisis. You started protecting your peace like it was sacred gold, because it is. You no longer bend just to keep the peace. You no longer bleed just to prove your love. And you no longer dim your frequency just to make others feel comfortable. That shift, subtle yet seismic, became the turning point in your spiritual evolution. People noticed. They couldn't quite explain it, but they could feel it. Your energy changed. Your glow returned. And suddenly, the same ones who overlooked you now look at you like you're a mystery wrapped in divine fire. It wasn't magic. It was healing. It was hydration. It was a holy alignment. When you stopped pouring your light into people who refused to see your worth, you became whole again. Your aura became unshakable. Your presence became commanding. You stopped being a source of free energy for those who never had the intention to grow with you. Now, when they look at you, they see someone they no longer recognize, not because you've changed superficially, but because you've evolved spiritually. And your evolution is a mirror to their stagnation. It wasn't that you were too much, it's that they were too little for the spiritual calling on your life. You were not designed to shrink for anyone. You were designed to expand, to elevate, to radiate power that is rooted not in ego, but in divine truth. The moment you reclaimed your energy, your life recalibrated. Relationships that were rooted in dependency dissolved. Conversations that once drained you now feel foreign. You've outgrown the spaces that once felt like home because your soul is finally living in truth, not survival. You no longer apologize for the boundaries you set. You no longer explain your silence. You've become fluent in the language of peace, and not everyone is fluent in that dialect. You've stepped into your own gravity. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer seek approval, you embody alignment. And that's why your looks are ageless. your presence unshakable, your spirit untouchable. You didn't just glow up, you awakened. You didn't just evolve, you remembered who you were before the world told you to forget. This is what spiritual sovereignty looks like. Not loud, not aggressive, just powerful in a way that speaks without words. You are no longer accessible to chaos. You are no longer a source of light for those who live in darkness by choice. And now, the very energy that used to be drained has become your greatest source of attraction. Comment below. I reclaim my energy and stand in my power if you're ready to cut the cords that no longer serve you and fully step into your spiritual strength. 8. You reclaimed your true identity. Letting go of false roles and societal masks did more than free your mind. It recalibrated your entire being. As you peeled off layers of identity that were never yours to begin with, your energy began to harmonize with your truth. No longer were you performing the role of who others expected you to be. Instead, your presence began to speak louder than words. The glow that people see isn't cosmetic, it's spiritual. It is the quiet radiance of a man who has returned to himself. When embodiment replaces performance, something sacred happens. The body becomes a vessel of truth. Most people age according to stress, suppression, and the pressure to conform. You, however, aged through liberation. While others chased validation, you pursued alignment. You walked away from the scripts handed to you by culture provider, protector, achiever, and rewrote your life based on what your soul whispered in the silence. That kind of courage doesn't just change your thoughts, it transforms your biology. The weight lifted from your shoulders allowed your posture to rise. The tension released from your jaw softened your voice. The guilt and shame you shed gave your eyes a different light. That's why people stare. That's why they can't quite place your age. You don't look like what you've been through because healing has rewritten your appearance. This isn't vanity. This is vibrational authority. The spiritual work you've done, facing shadows, breaking cycles, reclaiming worth, has caused a shift in your frequency. You became calmer, wiser, more magnetic, not because you forced it, but because you stopped resisting who you truly are. The body follows the soul, and when the soul heals, the body often regenerates. They may not understand it, but they feel it. The same people who once underestimated you now find themselves drawn to you, curious, even a little uncomfortable, because you no longer dim your light to fit in. You embody peace without pretending to be perfect. You radiate strength without needing to dominate. You carry a quiet confidence that doesn't beg for applause, and yet you receive it anyway. That's spiritual sovereignty. The world measures age in years, but you carry decades of wisdom in each moment of presence. You are a paradox seasoned yet youthful, grounded yet expansive, gentle yet powerful. While others seek anti-aging secrets, you are living proof that spiritual clarity is the real elixir. The truth is, you didn't just reclaim your identity. You remembered your essence. You remembered the version of yourself that existed before the conditioning, before the betrayals, before the need to prove. That remembrance realigned every cell in your body. You no longer move through life as a product of your past. You move as a man, reborn in spiritual purpose. And that's why you look the way you do. That's why your presence feels different. Because you are no longer here to survive. You're here to embody. If you've made it this far, You're someone who's ready to live in full alignment. Drop a comment saying, "I reclaim my true identity," to affirm your journey back to authenticity. Stay tuned. Your glow is only getting brighter. 9. You transcended time. Because you live spiritually, not chronologically. You didn't just grow older, you ascended. While others counted years, you gathered wisdom. Your journey wasn't about time passing, but about energy deepening. You lived in alignment, not with a calendar, but with your calling. As the world obsessed over the fear of aging, you turned inward, choosing to evolve from the inside out. You understood what most ignore. The soul doesn't age. The body may shift, but your spirit, refined through awareness, remains untouched by time. That's why people stare. That's why they can't make sense of your presence. Because you're not simply aging, you're transcending. You moved through life consciously. Each hardship became a gateway to higher understanding. You weren't just surviving trials, you were being spiritually sculpted by them. The heartbreaks, the solitude, the betrayals, they didn't wear you down. They purified your essence. You released what weighed on your spirit, and in doing so, you made room for radiance. While others chased temporary youth through creams and routines, you chose the path of healing, forgiveness, and divine surrender. And that decision became your anti-aging elixir. Not bottled, but embodied. Not purchased, but earned. People wonder how you glow without trying. They ask what your secret is. The truth is spiritual. You've learned to rest in peace while alive. You've honored silence, chosen stillness, and returned to the present moment again and again. That's why your nervous system feels different. That's why your energy doesn't carry the weight of the world. You learn that to be truly ageless is to live light in vibration, light in thought, light in soul. And that kind of light can't be dimmed by time. It only grows stronger. Your beauty is a reflection of your liberation. Every line on your face is a scripture. Every silver thread in your hair is a prayer answered. You didn't resist the tide of aging. You walked with it, and it revealed your divinity. As Isaiah wrote, "Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength." You are the evidence of that renewal. You gave up the illusion of control, and in return, received the strength that comes from surrender. Not weakness, but sacred resilience. The kind that makes people stop and wonder how you've endured so much and still shine. While others chased applause, you chased alignment. You chose authenticity over image, devotion over distraction, and in doing so, you unlocked the power of timelessness. Your youth isn't something you clung to, it's something you've redefined. Because spiritual living bends the rules of biology. It rewrites what's possible. You aren't defying age. You're expressing eternity. The very cells of your being carry a frequency shaped by prayer, peace, and presence. And when someone encounters you, they feel it even if they don't have the words for it. Let them wonder. Let them question the glow, the calm, the strength. Because you've done what few dare to do, you've lived not in resistance to time, but in reverence of it. And in that reverence, you didn't just survive the years, you sanctified them. That's not aging. That's awakening. That's spiritual mastery. To affirm your transcendence beyond time, declare it with power. Comment below, "I am timeless through spirit," to honor your evolution and inspire others to rise above the limits of the clock. Thank you for joining us on Spiritual Wisdom today. Remember, the way you carry your age, your energy, and your presence isn't just genetics, it's spiritual. You are not behind in life. You're simply on divine timing. People may not understand how you look younger, glow brighter, and walk lighter despite all you've endured. But that's what happens when healing, purpose, and alignment become your lifestyle. If this message spoke to your soul, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And be sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next revelation meant just for you. Your journey is sacred, and it's only just beginning.